I'm going to now. Dirk, thank you very much. If you... okay. Sorry. So let me introduce Thuso.
I'm a popular guy.
I love the outfit, by the way. With 13 years experience in ICT, most of which was spent in the financial services sector, Thuso has worked across 12 African countries managing digital distribution. In his last 3 years at AWS, he enabled AWS to secure enterprise customers in Nigeria and Kenya, delivering results for enterprise customers and AWS. That's interesting considering Pearl's talk yesterday about the origination of AWS. Thuso spearheads SprintHive's overall growth strategy, collaborating with product development teams with the aim of making digital automation easy for financial institutions and customer-facing enterprises. He leads SprintHive's customer engagement and works closely with the CEO and head of partnerships to fast-track digital product adoption and expansion. Thuso, welcome. I hand over to you.
What they missed there is that the CEO is my boss and also my friend, right?
He says that because he knows I don't like it. This would normally be where we walk up.
Yeah, so digital onboarding in less than 2 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So over to you, Dirk.
Okay, no, first you on the PII.
I must do the disclaimer, please, because we debated this thing for a long time to say we want to give you as much realistic information as possible. So our ask is that from a POPIA point of view, please do not take pictures of the screen. Please do not record, because some of the information would be sensitive. But we want you to relate to the message that we are going to issue out, right?
Yes.
And we did redact as much as possible, but that's our request to you.
Yeah, so so when you show a fraudulent document, there's a real identity that's being, faked, and then the fraudster's face is also their PII, and until they've been found guilty in a court of law, that is still protected. Okay. So the first, we're talking about the future trends, so we're going to talk about identity verification, and we felt that the first thing we should always mention when it gets to identity verification is the deep fakes that everybody is so very, very worried about. So we've brought Elon Musk on to help us with this presentation. And while this is on everybody's, front and center, we don't really think that this is such a big threat or the next emerging trend. There's a few reasons why deepfakes isn't really such a viable attack vector. Firstly, deepfakes, the deepfake model is trained with an adversarial model, because humans can't give the AI feedback every hundreds of thousands of times a second. There's another model that judges the first model. So one is trying to fool and create the best fake, and the next one is detecting the fake. And they run in parallel the whole time. So for the fake model to get better, the detection model has to get better in step with it. And the one can't outpace the other. So that's sort of the first sort of protection we have. The second level of protection is that at the time of detection, we have a lot more information. We have information about the camera, we have information about location, so the actual AI detection plays about 50% in our detection of deepfakes. So there's a lot of bias towards detecting. And then I think lastly, to create a deepfake, you need a lot of information. So you'll see the deepfake models out there. It's all celebrities and famous people. Obviously, it's also nice for us to be able to recognize them, but it's also because there's a lot of video footage of them. I mean, we've built our own deepfake model, and it requires a lot of video of people looking left, looking right, smiling, being happy, being sad, because the AI model needs to find all your facial features, right? So you need all the emotions, all the angles, all with different kinds of lighting, dark room, light room. So to create you need a lot of video footage, a lot of frames and pictures of people.
Yeah, and we are not saying deepfake is not something to focus on. But what we are rather saying is that the investment the fraud syndicate have to put in terms of technology to get it right, and the data points that they need to build a very accurate one that would fool a detection system is just too much at this point. Right?
Yes, and fooling a human and fooling a machine is a different problem. So while this photo might fool a human being, it's very easy for a machine to detect that that was generated by another machine based on how the pixels are scattered, based on how the, there's a lot of things we can. So this is Craig that's in our office, and then he did the Elon Musk with deepfake for us.
Yeah, I mean, during break you can go and meet Craig. Maybe he has contact to Elon Musk, we never know.
Give you an electric car. So this is just sorry, I was clicking too slow, so this is just a video of basically how we test the system with a deepfake and easily detects it. So the fraudsters actually are aware of this. They also know how AI works. As much as we're all investing in AI and studying, we think they are too. So we've got a little bit of evidence of that. So we've uncovered a fraud syndicate that was attacking one of our customers. So if you look at these identity documents, I wish I had a laser pointer. Can this thing laser point? Yes. So if you look at the bottom corner, there's a little shadow sticking out, and it's on that corner and on that corner. So you can see that this is the same template that the fraudsters have built, like a blank. They've very meticulously made a blank identity document. This is a South African identity green identity book for those who are not from South Africa. And they've made the patterns flow and everything, and then they insert identities. So this particular syndicate was creating lots of different identities with the same base template. We managed to catch them, and they couldn't figure out how, so they started trying all sorts of different things. They made multiple identities for one person, and they actually had a very complicated system of going from branch to branch and doing digital online applications, because if you walk into a branch, the next day you walk in with a new identity, a human will recognize you. So they had groups of people going to one branch and then rotating the group. So 35 people attacked like 15 branches. These three at branch one, then tomorrow they go to branch two, the next day to branch three, all with new identities. And they were opening check accounts because the barrier to entry is low, and then they would apply for a loan the next month. Okay? So as we detected them, they started experimenting with how they can fool the AI. So the photo at the bottom right is actually showing that they're changing the lighting to make it look like a photograph or a scan. But if you look, it's the same. Oops. Is there a back button here? No photos. If you look at the little quarter is still there. So it's not a new image they tried. They actually used still their base template, and they in Photoshop changed the colors, changed the lighting, trying to see if that would work.
And this speaks to deriving any AI of data, because AI thrive on getting data. So when you reduce the pixelation, you are taking away some of the data points for AI.
Exactly. So like I said with the deepfake thing, you would think they would try and make a better and better and better identity document, but actually what they did is they reduced the colors, they reduced the resolution, and tried to make it a worse and worse image to see if at some point the AI would be starved. Is the patterns the problem? Is so these ones, if you look, that little corner is still there. They're still using the same template. They've now reduced the color palette. They've, in Photoshop, introduced the light source. And the faces here are quite difficult to recognize, but still recognizable, so we blanked them out. Where the last face, they got the quality so far down that, I mean, a human won't be able to recognize that person, so we didn't even need to pixelate it. And that's what the fraudsters are doing. They're trying to find the holes in your system and using knowledge of how these systems work. So, trying, like Thuso said, trying to starve the AI of data. And then finally, they tried to make it look like a physical copy with a photograph. So they printed it out, made a little book, stuck it in, and then, unfortunately for them, we still detected it. But I like human. They cut it out by hand and didn't even get the corners nice and round. So it is definitely a fake. But you see, they're just constantly prodding to see, is it because it's a scan? Is it because of the resolution? So this was a printout stuck into an ID book and taken a photograph of it to see if that would fool the system. They also got the color of the shield slightly better here. All right. Any comments or questions? Feel free to just, interrupt. And like we said, some of them are difficult to see, with the naked eye. Sometimes it's as simple as the barcode being wrong. Some fakes are quite good. We've just replaced the face with a new face. And obviously, not all frauds are created equal. Some frauds are easily spottable by the hand. I love these two. The guy actually cut out pieces of paper, and you can see the wet print made the paper wobbly on the left. And the right-hand guy just took a pen and wrote his new one with Tipex in a pen.
I bet my money he spent a lot of time writing that 7.
So you
never get it.
That 7 is like lots of effort. And there's a return on investment for them too, and these guys obviously didn't invest enough.
Sorry. Yes. How do you deal with false positives? I mean, if someone is onboarding, right?
Yes.
And your AI raises a type 2 error, meaning that it's actually my document, and yet it's flagging it as it's not due to a couple of errors. I mean, how do you deal with that? Do you do retrospective, or do you do real time at the point of onboarding?
So the first way to deal with that is the first thing to consider is risk and efficiency, right? These two levers are always connected to each other. So lucky for us, our customers rate the customer experience higher than the fraud challenge. So the barriers are set quite low. It's quite rare to decline someone. It's rather referred to fraud where a human being makes the decision. So there are some cases where we do decline, and we are very certain that it's fraud in those cases. So we more or less require 100% certainty to auto-decline, and that's a very small percentage, because the reality is you're never going to gain efficiencies on fraud. Anybody here, you all know what your fraud rates are? Let's say it's 5%. If I catch 100% of fraudsters and I automatically decline them, we get 5% automation efficiency. If I focus on the true cases, you can get 95% efficiency. So what you want to do is make sure that the fraudsters go to the fraud department and focus on them. So that's how we basically avoid false positives. Obviously, there's a remediation process where somebody can appeal, and that there is a process like that. But I mean, in the last 12 months, we've had one, and it turned out that it was denied.
And we'll unpack on this later on. That's why we always say that there is no automation that will completely replace human beings. The two have to coexist.
Yeah, and that's important, because the AI, that feedback I spoke of previously, you need that human feedback. Otherwise, you'll get AI drift, where the AI says this is fraud, decline, and it gets its own data back. So slowly but surely it can get more aggressive without you knowing, because it's getting its own feedback. So it should never be trained on things it decided, only trained on things humans decided.
Yeah, so that's another question.
Yeah. So what measures in place do we have when it comes to foreign national documentation? I think IDs are, we know the security features, foreign national documentation, multitude of countries. How do we deal with those?
So we've been pressing hard on that, especially in the scenario of South Africa, where we have so many foreign nationals in our ecosystem, right? Well, to the compliment of government, they're moving from harness to ABIS, right? And what ABIS will give you is anybody who have entered the country at a point of entry legally, you will have record of their documents and you can authenticate against that. We've been in engagements with them a number of times, and they're at the final phase of completing ABIS migration, and that will help, right? But for me, the bigger prize would be doing what the East African bloc has done. Now, when you are in East Africa, you get issued the same passport by all Eastern African countries. It makes authentication or verification much easier, and we are waiting for that to come into the southern part of the continent so that we can also benefit from that. But there's progress being made, not at the pace that we would want, but it's good progress being made.
Yeah, and just to add on that, what we can do today is we do digital fraud checks. So is it a a fake photograph of a real document, that somebody take a photograph and then photoshops it and changes it. That we can detect on foreign documents. We also have what we call physical fraud checks. So are the shields in the right place? Is it the right font? Is the character spacing correct? And that we would have to add those checks manually because they're specific per document. And that we don't have for all of the African continent's documents. And then comparing the data with the harness data is another check, which not all other countries have. Some do and some don't. Yeah.
So one of the things that we are clear about is that the fraudsters, they know how to follow patterns, right? When we had banking as a physical channel, fraudsters used to take their chances on that. And later on, they realized that ATMs are a new thing. They then moved to attack the ATMs. Now we went to digital, we see a lot of them in the digital space. Now that more companies are investing in preventing fraud in the digital space, they are going back to channels again, right? So there's that loop where every new channel that the banks or financial services sectors are creating, that's the channels being attacked, and it's for a simple reason. New channels don't have as much investment from security point of view than the old one because there's still learnings to be taken from there, right?
Experience makes you better, and if you don't have experience. And I think there was a big push into digital by everybody in the COVID days, and that big push brought a lot of investment, which brought a lot of security features. There's a big advancement in biometrics. So we've definitely found that the fraudsters are going back to the branch, back to the in-store for the retail creditors. There's a lot of coercion and collusion and bribing going on. Yeah. And now we're putting technology in the branch so that the agent or the person in the branch isn't making the decision that they're using technology. So putting fingerprint biometrics in, putting cameras so that the same checks and balances that's in the digital channel is in the physical channel as well.
Yeah, I mean, because one of the clear things to us is that build, measure, and learn is used by everybody, including the syndicates. But for syndicates to get more data points on why a particular application was declined or it was flagged as fraud, somebody internal has to give them some information. So they target some of these agents to really help them get better at what they're doing so that they can get better return on investment. Right? So we switch over to income verification.
Well, before, any more questions?
Yeah.
I think, I don't know whether this happens in South Africa, but I'm from Zim. How do you deal with an original fake document where the fraud has happened at the issuing department?
Don't worry, we have that in South Africa as well. Yeah. No, we in the end, we would approve that. You know, you got to trust your source. Yeah. We have that too. And we actually now have a mechanism in the API that we get from Home Affairs that says this is flagged for deletion, meaning that they've detected something on their side, and then we're now in a big debate whether that's a decline or a referred to fraud, because there's also now false positives of people's identities being deleted who are not actually fake. So if you can't trust your primary sources, then
I think somebody said
nothing we can do about that. Yeah.
Yesterday or today, yesterday actually, somebody said garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
If what you identify as your true source of data has garbage in it, what you're going to get on the other side is also garbage, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want
so,
the big green button?
Yeah. At least now you can work for me.
All right.
So,
just say click.
Yeah. So on income verification, we allow, on your onboarding or origination, we allow companies to source things such as bank statement and pay slips. And we do fraud detection, tamper detection on that, right? But similar to the syndicates that do IDs, we found syndicates that are doing bank statement. Very good bank statement for that matter, right? At some point, this bank statement, our own system didn't detect them as fraud. Yeah. Until something looked funny in it. In the metadata of the document, the guy signed best there is. And there's no bank that will have that in the metadata of a document, of a bank statement, right? Now, we find this, we go back and look at, we build this in the logic. We then find a lot of bank statement that has this signature from different banks that were already in process either for onboarding or for origination. We had to stop those applications, right? But this goes to emphasizing the point earlier on. Syndicates, they want return on investment. it is not only a good AI that will help you get there, you need humans also who stop and say something is just not right with this and let's tap more into this.
Yeah.
But the benefit of what we have done, all our customers that use our income verification, we could then take this as a logic and run it through all our customers and stop the applications across board.
Yeah, and an agent reported this, said to us, it looks suspicious. We did the investigation. We've got a team that looks at all the fraud cases, and we obviously feed it into the AI, but we also manually look at them. And Mr. I am the best goes across banks. He does FMB fakes, time bank fakes, all the provinces. I don't know how complicated his systems are, but he's definitely on the dark web selling this because it's not location-based, it's not banks.
Yeah, I think the time bank one, it's KZN, and there's a Gauteng one, there's a Western Cape one. And a couple of months back, I saw somewhere on TV where there was a syndicate out of downtown Joburg that openly advertised that they can make you any document and bank statement. Right? You just come to them, even they have prices there to say if you pay this much, we'll give you 3-month bank statement and so on.
And this is the stats for this one fraudster, monthly totals of how many times we've blocked his documents. So he's obviously getting success elsewhere because he's not running out of business because we're stopping him. And his, and this is where we also say for fraudulent data, we want to share with everybody how to catch the fraudsters because that's a problem we all share.
Yeah, I mean, it brings the challenge not only to the banks, also to fintechs to say, how do we get together to share some of this fraud stuff so that we can build one repository that helps everybody gets better. Right?
And we're busy with the legal problem of a fraud database. So talking about, you spoke earlier about government regulation and getting involved, is we have a database of faces that we know on fraudulent documents. These faces come up over and over and over again. But until they're convicted in court, we can't use that as proof. So we can say heightened due diligence, there's something a bit odd here. But that fraud database to build a shareable between banks and between retail creditors and everybody to say, these are the faces that we've confirmed, that would be a very big step forward and, within the bounds of POPI and all the other privacy.
Yeah. Next one.
Okay.
So currently, well, by majority, 5 of the documents that we get is because somebody has to submit their own bank statement. But what we truly believe, when we embrace collaboration in the financial services sector, and we minimize as much as possible the need for somebody to give their own documents, and we start sourcing them from DEA or open banking, we are going to cap some of the frauds that we see today, right? Yeah. And our system is built with the capability to fetch directly from source. That way it doesn't allow anybody to tamper or manipulate the bank statement.
Yeah, and open banking, thank you Nedbank, if the rest of the banks can get on board with that, that's good for the consumer, it's good for the banking industry.
And just my personal opinion on this, I bemoan the fact that if you look at the development of open banking in Europe, vis-a-vis in South Africa particularly. Yeah. One of the things that we lack is for a minute to pause and say, this is not about me and my company, it's about the greater ecosystem. And how do we get the greater ecosystem to be better? There are glimpses of that happening, but I don't think it's happening at the right scale, and we need to be quite quicker in that.
Oh. Are we being rushed? Oh, yeah. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, so what's happening here is that I thought there was a question coming from there. So what happens here is an indication of how, well, let's start this way, step back.
Step back.
Yeah, when we talk about money muling, and I was saying to Dirk, we need to emphasize this difference. Money muling is different to a person who's using their bank account as a postal service. There are people that an income lands now, they deduct it or they transfer it to another bank. Right? There's nothing wrong about that. That's the choice that they've made. Whatever their issues with that bank is their issues. But that the bank's account that is used for postal service should never be used for any application because there's nothing to make a decision out of that. Different to money muling where somebody deliberately puts money in a bank account, they make a couple of transactions that makes it look normal. And then once they've built enough records or transaction in that, they submit it as part of the application, right? So our system is built to detect that because we know that certain transactions that should be there. If those transactions are not there, then this bank statement has nothing, should do nothing with the application process.
Yeah, some banks call it profile building or money muling. And the idea is we try to detect whether the bank statement is, we call it lived in.
Yeah.
You know, like, and the fraudsters, again, caught on really quickly. They used to transfer money in, money out, money in, money out. And then when you detect it, now they're transferring a bit for rent, a bit for Vodacom, a bit for, and they mask it. But you know, the numbers are too round and it has to be within a certain time frame because the syndicate needs to cycle the money. You can't hold on to it till the end. So there's, again, a whole AI built and trained with these are the money muling accounts and these are the non-money muling accounts. And yeah.
Yeah. So what this slide shows you actually is that you can see the green bar is the money in and the red is the money out, how quickly money goes in and goes out of the muled account, right? And it gives you an indication that this is not a bank statement that is lifted.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't one transaction, those are the sum of,
Yeah.
so there's many transactions, but it's immediately gone. And yeah, sometimes it's also people who withdraw all the cash because they want to block stop orders from coming off, but you know, that's also not someone who should be credited.
Yeah, and that's another example of how money mulers are operating the system.
Cool.
The last point that we want to bring home is an emphasis on the fact that technology on its own is not going to take us anywhere. But technology with humans is going to get us to a better place. So we build our system, one, to bring efficiency into the process, into the businesses, to accelerate your business growth. But one thing we are certain about is that you need humans to pick up some of the stuff that AI would have missed, feed it back as learnings to the machine learning, and the machine learning gets smarter and deliver more efficiency or higher productivities for human. So human and the technology that we build has to coexist. And Dirk, if my recollection is well, looking across all our customers, whether it's in the banking space, the retail lending, we haven't had any customer that says, because you automated my process, I'm going to retrench people or shut down a department. People are opting to take efficiencies instead of doing away with humans in the process.
Yeah, that's accurate. Nobody has actually reduced headcount in the department because if you think about it, it makes business sense. You can onboard double as many customers if you automate half the process. That's way more money than the cost saving of a few salaries. Or you can take the efficiencies in fraud prevention, which is also way more money. So it's always the efficiencies that win rather than the cost savings. And I mean, our best claim to fame is one of our customers have had 18 months with zero identity fraud at all. No.
Yeah. Well, I think this is our last slide. So my boss from marketing told me that she woke up on the right side of her bed and she decided that today again she wants to give somebody lucky a 5,000 Rand voucher to Sandton City. So pass by our stall, drop your business card, and maybe you might be the lucky person. And thank you for really entertaining us.
No more questions?
Thank you very much. I think it was very informative, very interested to engage afterwards with you guys. I think the challenge statement that we need to take collectively as FSIs, MNOs, anybody that deals money movement, and I think if we start tying it together, we were talking about the singular ID, economy of scale when it comes to, how does AI learn? AI learns by having as much data point as humanly possible. And if we can actually, as a collective within the African continent, but I'm kind of narrowing down to South Africa for now, we cannot wait for the government, going from, harness to ABIS. It's not going to be the solve for the end of the world. We have to actually solve this. And if we can collectively, through open APIs, data sharing, allow these AI engines in whatever manner of form to collectively, work across the board, across the FSIs, across the MNOs, we will protect our customers on the ground, and that's what we need to do at the end of the day, right? So, I mean, we're all obviously protecting our bottom line. We don't want fraud, we don't want payouts, but that will be a byproduct of actually protecting who we're supposed to be protecting, and it's the customers, because they have given us their custodial of their financial instruments, and it's our job to protect them. So I think it's a challenge to the entire industry that we need to come together, take our badges off and our branding off, and actually say, how do we actually work collectively to protect our customers right now?
100% agree. I mean, that would be almost the only viable solution that can happen immediately,
Thank you. Andrew, So I know we just had the discussion around garbage in, garbage out, but just to, I think just to pop on your thoughts around this, how do you protect your own systems from the team developing the same systems? I mean, how do you protect that from the developers themselves?
So how, did you get the question?
No.
I don't think can we run through it again?
So you've got your own developers and your own team developing that system. How do you protect the same system from those guys?
Oh,
I know we talked about
yes.
garbage in, garbage out, but
Right. So from a security point of view, our developers don't have access to the data. No, nobody in our company does. We actually have a whole break glass process where if for some reason we need to get onto the database, in the case of some disaster recovery or something like that, three staff members there's 5 people that can break glass, 3 need to be present, and that's an encryption system that won't decrypt until they have 3 keys. By not allowing access, because we know that we're also susceptible to bribes, and you've got to protect the data, and it's again layers of security. So down to when you get to, we actually encrypt the data in the database and encrypt the drive, so it's a double encrypted, and then the access to that is only through the system, and then the network is locked to, let's say, only the production service can talk to the production database, and every layer has protection like that. And then we have alarming on the configuration. So if a developer changes that configuration, because the people who set the configuration, then it alarms a different party. And then obviously we have independent security audits and penetration tests and all those things regularly.
And maybe what I'm highlighting is that I think 4 of us, we are previously from AWS.
Yeah.
And one thing that we commonly learned from that space is that security is a make or break of the business, right? It's quite such an important part. You have to invest more and more in it and make sure that you give your customer comfort, that they are not at a place where the water has been making.
And the trick is nobody gets in, not just the bad guys. Nobody gets in, then we know the bad guys can't get in.
Just a quick one. I've seen a trend evolving where we all know that a POP is now a piece of gold. But a lot of small and medium businesses are being fooled with fake POPs. Is there a solution for them to confirm that a POP is indeed correct and that the payment was done, maybe to the banks in the room? Is there no platform where you can log on just to confirm with the reference that, okay, this payment was done and this is the sending account and this is the receiver account? Because a lot of businesses are being fooled with fake POPs.
So there's, the only way I think to do that is through open banking APIs where you go directly to the source. And in South Africa, there's only 2 banks at the moment that has APIs. There's a third busy building. And that's Nedbank and Investec that have APIs. So we could build an app to verify, but it would be verifying only for 2 banks. And there's the DEA, but the DEA is not usable for that. There's a whole bunch of regulation, and their own regulation. There has to be a credit provider, original credit provider. So it's basically the only option there is open banking, and there's only 2 banks that have voluntarily created APIs to create a marketplace for apps like that. And I think it would be nice if the banks had their own way of doing it, but I think a marketplace of APIs is better, because then an independent developer can create that app and have one place for a customer to easily transact, easily pay. I don't want to have a login into all the different banks to do it necessarily.
So, Dirk, maybe I'm innovating while we are on stage. I shouldn't maybe be doing that. But I think from a document temper point of view, that there's a point to do there. Because some of this document, it's one document that is used and it's recycled and changed and changed and changed.
I suppose we can use the same fraud detection on the bank statement. So we have databases of all the software the banks use. We can say this PDF was created with, Adobe, and Nedbank doesn't use Adobe, so we fraud flag it like that. So we could use the same mechanism, but it won't be a guarantee. All right. So
Yeah, 20%.
Send you the commission check.
I'll make it 25% once off, right?
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks for the presentation. It was a really good presentation. The question that I have is around how do you, from an R&D perspective, how do you stay ahead or at par? Because with cybersecurity, it feels like we're often just catching up. So if something happens, then we learn and then we adopt. But how are you trying to keep or create preventative measures or be proactive? Are you perhaps investing in ethical hackers, or how do you get to a point where you're trying to be at par with what is in the market from a security perspective?
So we, from a simple security perspective, like an IT securing the data, we use all these best practices. We're ISO 27001, standards compliant. But from detecting identity documents, we did try ethical hackers. We do use some of them. We actually find graphic designers to be much better fakers of ID books. So we employ graphic designers to say, can you make a really good copy of this? And then we try and if we detect it, then we tell them and they try again. So we do active sort of idea hacking. And then we also just use the real documents to see what features we can get from it. So somebody has the idea to check fonts and spacing and character spacing, because that's a very consistent the way the printers work then, and the way the character sets on our ID documents is not a character set you can download. So there's little anomalies in those characters that we knew was unique. So we look for these uniquenesses that's very hard for the fraudster to fake.
And from a culture point of view, we have two processes in the organization. One is deliberate learning, and two, it's lean coffee. So during lean coffee session, if you have picked up something or you have a question about something that bugs you, you post it, we vote on it, and we discuss it for 5 minutes. If there's more into that question, we are likely to take it to deliberate learning, or you have to write a one-page about it, right? From a deliberate learning point of view, some of our taggers, they would say, we are seeing a trend of this, and then we all get into the session, compulsory for everybody to be in it. We discuss what they are seeing. We then discuss how best we can improve from that point of view. So for you to stay ahead, it's not only having a department for R&D, but it's bringing the entire organization together to help each other learn and get better at what you're doing.
But I also, to answer the question, a truly innovative attacker will get through once or twice, then we see how what he did, and then we build a check for it. So some of it is proactive and some of it is reactive. And you're trying to limit the blast radius, right? Once you get 1 or 2, you want to stop there and not, and like I always say, in the digital channel, the problem with digital is it scales better than physical. If I can make a perfect identity document, I can't go into the branch 1,000 times one day and just open accounts, but digitally I can. So you want to look for those patterns. Again, the AI can be proactive to say, all of a sudden there's a huge spike in applications coming from the same area, the photographs have the same geolocation. Oh, that's anomalous, right? So we don't know that it's fraud, but we know that the behavior is inconsistent with the normal patterns we have.
Okay. I see the sign from our boss at the back.
Definitely out of time.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
As you guys, but I wanted the question, I think when you talk about verification, you talk about the issue of banks utilizing the APIs to move away from hard copies to going to source. Why is it an issue for the banks here from South Africa, so we can ask them? Why are they not sort of moving quick on that? And for you guys, you're spending so much time and effort building the AI for DB documents. Would it not be better for you guys to build the APIs for the banks to then use, like, I'm going to source, but I'm not waiting for you as a bank to build the API. Here's the API that you to adopt that you can expose to me to do the income verification sort of kind of situation.
Okay, so two ways to answer that. The first is the banks are quite protective of their data in South Africa because I think it's a competition thing. I know that's a question for the banks, but FNB started the DEA and then left because of sharing too much data. And then secondly, even in Europe where we have open banking still requires consent, and a significant percentage of people do not give consent. They say, I will give you the pages I want you to see, I don't want you to have access. So open banking, you can be that granular with it, but still people don't, you know, if you don't trust the banking system, then you might say, no, I'll bring you a piece of paper. So yeah, we don't know in Europe that, so we don't think the piece of paper or the PDF will disappear, but we would love to stop investing in that and actually, because, you know, it's data, information, insight. So we have to take the data from the PDF, turn it into information, back into a format that the bank already has, and then we can get insight into it. And we would like to just do that insight bit, where we detect income, we detect, you know, like anomalous transactions, we detect money muling, we detect all these, you know, propensity to lapse and all those things from the bank statement. But we sort of have to do that beginning bit, you know, because of the data. So maybe if anybody from the banks can comment on APIs? Well, you have an API, so.